What's up, guys? Roughly about 8 months ago, I did a video doing a review or first look, whatever you want to call it, of the Agama, the new openSUSE installer. And it's overall, my impression was very positive. That was roughly about release version 9, and now we have a week or two ago, we had release version 13. So I think it's time we look at it again. Leading into the actual looking at it again, we're going to read the release notes, at least the highlights of the release notes of each one leading up to 13 from 9, the one that I reviewed. So release version 10, we're looking at they added QR codes so you can easily connect to your server. Very cool. Syntax highlighting, a product selection list. We changed a bit of the list products which can be installed in Agama. Since version 10, it's possible to install openSUSE Leap 16 Alpha. We also created Slash 16 Favor, but is not available for the public. Cool. Improvements in storage, installation repository, internal changes, a lot of back-end stuff. Move on to version 11. The first beta versions of SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 16 are almost around the corner. openSUSE Leap 16 is already at alpha stage. So Agama can install slow roll now as of version 11. So you can see in the little screenshot, Leap, micro, slow roll, and tumbleweed. Changes in the web interface. Agama 11 also comes with small reorganization of the workflow of the web interface. In previous versions, it was necessary to visit the users section to configure the root authentication and then go back to overview. I kind of pointed that out in the other video that I did, that you had to switch back and forth between the two, and it was a little clunky. That happened because authentication is the only aspect of the system configuration for which Agama cannot infer a reasonable setup. Starting with Agama 11, a screen to configure the root authentication is presented to the user right away after selecting the operating system to install. So you get the screen right here. After configuring your root password, the user lands in the main Agama screen, where the general layout has been reorganized to ensure the install button is always accessible from all sections of the interface. Better, for sure. Before, you had to go back to the overview to hit the install button. So better, I think. We'll look at that in a minute. Additionally, the new install button can show an exclamation point if there's issues preventing the installation. Okay, that's good. Product registration. This is for SLE stuff. License agreement, also SLE. Some more command line and an unintended install. A lot more stuff in the back end. So version 12 release and a roadmap. We'll look at that roadmap in just a minute. New visual experience. You may know that the Agama web interface relies on the Patternfly framework, the same design system used by Cockpit. In this version of Agama, we migrated to the latest major version of Patternfly, which brings several improvements and quite noticeable changes. Moreover, we took the opportunity to align with the SUSE branding guidelines regarding aspects like typography and colors, etc. Okay. Revamped storage section. Thus, a couple months ago, we decided to change the approach to that user interface, but it took us some time to reach a point and functional enough and basic. Okay, I missed a little bit. Okay, LVM. It allowed to create complex setups over single or multiple disks based on partitions or LVM volume groups, to use hard disks directly formatted without partitions, to reuse existing partitions or volume groups. But it had some problems. Most users failed to discover how to access those features, so they brought it up more to the front. New section is still far from its final form, so expect significant updates on future releases, like bringing back the support to define LVM volume groups. So changes in authentication. When it comes to Linux, a Linux system, one of the first aspects of security is the way to organize users' privileges and authentication. SUSE and openSUSE have been reconsidering lately how to approach And it seems clear that the traditional role of the root user and the default configuration of sudo are going to change in future releases of SLE and openSUSE Leap. Take note, they didn't say tumbleweed. Agama 12 already takes the first steps to adapt the new situation, removing the mandatory step to set a password for the root user and introducing a new authentication section instead of the former user's one. Interesting. This is just the first iteration for a part of Agama that will receive several improvements regarding usability and wording in the upcoming release. Post-partition scripts, information about AutoYast, improvements of the Alive ISO, more background stuff. So release version 13 that we're on now, that we're fixing to test. Setting the host name. First of all, there's nothing like a unique host name since a machine can have different names depending on the network interface used to interact with it. Moreover, those names can be static or transient, and there are several mechanisms to set or modify them with relatively complex precedence rules in several situations. One of those mentioned mechanisms already available at previous versions of the Agama Live installation media was specifying hostname equals boot argument. In Agama 13, we're extending that with some limited support to configure the hostname at the Agama configuration to be used by the command line interface and during unattended installation, and with simple dedicated section at the web user interface. So right here, you just type it in and there it is. Okay. Installation on the LVM. Another feature that got a preliminary user interface at 13 is the ability to install using LVM or Logical Volume Manager. As you may know, it is already possible to define a LVM, volume groups, and logical volumes at the storage section. And blah, blah, blah. Agama 13 provides a first integration of that functionality into the web user interface. There's the screenshot. New interface is still a bit rough. Yeah, they're going to work on it. Register extensions from SUSE Customer Center. Selecting individual packages to install. Similar to the product section, Agama 13 also extends the software one with new possibilities. In addition to the previously available list of patterns, now it's possible to specify a list of individual packages, not necessarily contained on any pattern. As mentioned before, there is no plans to add such a fine-grained software selection to the web user interface of Agama. This is severely, supremely disappointing. I don't like this. Bad openSUSE. That's one of the things in the YAST installer that makes openSUSE stand out from so many of the other installers. You can pick and choose individual packages to not install, unselected to install, or select them to install. That's one of the things that made YAST and openSUSE just the installer just above and beyond so many of the other ones, and you're not. No, I'm very disappointed. Yeah, well, and then some more blah blah in the background. That's terrible. I so much don't like that. So that release version 13 is the one we're going to show today. I'm going to do an install of using Agama 13. Right before we get to that, we're going to look at the roadmap. We just read off 13. Agama 14, around April 21st. Use Wayland instead of X11 at a live session. Handling of self-signed certificates for RMT and SCC proxy. User interface for managing extensions. Revamped user interface for network configuration. I kind of like the network configuration. I wonder what they're going to change. It just reminds me of KDE, which I like. Enhancements on remote operation using command line interface. Changes at LVM management, including improvements to user interface, handling of LVM device files. Improvements to at unintended installation, including configuration of iSCSI connections, definition of network bridges, and configurable timeout and extra boot arguments for bootloader. So I'm not going to necessarily read all these. Agama 15. Allow us solve conflicts for patterns at the user interface. Command line stuff, unintended installation. Midterm plans, a welcome screen for local installation. I like a welcome screen. The ability to adjust some simple settings related to security. The way they worded that, some simple settings, does not make it sound like you can change from SE Linux to AppArmor. It says adjust some simple settings. Deal with multiple real-time clocks. Not sure of that. Improvements in network configuration again. Usability fixes of the user interface and ability to configure DNS search domains per interface. Okay. Some unintended, some storage handling. Yeah, some more stuff. Long-term plans. Introduce the concept of security profiles. Storage. Rewrite some components in Rust instead of the current Ruby. Improve integration with other tools. Okay. Now that we have that out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and spin this Agama 13 up. All right, we are at the live boot grub menu. We're going to hit go. See how long this takes to load up. Because I know in Yast installer, this part takes a really long time. Come on. So far, so good. Come on. You know, not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, you can scroll. Have the option for slow rolling. Of course, I'm going to pick Tumbleweed. Of course. Be interesting to see if that new Parallels download is on here by default. All right, so just like before, we load up into an overview. Something on here is different. I don't think I had software or authentication on the other one. I don't think. So let's go ahead and go through this. We got the little exclamation point. Not possible with current setup. Click to know more. Oh, that's nice. A little slide in. That's nice. Okay, make sure define a user, setting a root password or required. Okay, that's a nice little slide in. I like that. Okay, so overview. It's kind of like a next button. Overview and then next to host name. I'm gonna set a static host name. I'm gonna set it to Low Tech Linux. Why not? Hit accept. Hit accept. I guess it accepted it. Localization, again, just like with the last go around with Agama, I am not in Berlin. I assure you. So we're going to set it to something a little closer. And that's better. Hit select. Okay. English, keyboard, and time zone. All good. Network. If you're on a wireless network, this works very much like KDE Plasma's network connector, which I really like, and I'm not sure how much changing they want to do to that. I don't know. Storage. There's definitely a lot more information here than there was in my previous Agama. You can select encryption, and it's just a checkbox, and you accept. And right here, use DVD. Okay, no other disk found. No content found. Okay, select. Yep, right. More, add LVM. Okay, cool. Change boot options. Select the disk to configure partitions for booting. Reset to defaults. Configure an iSCSI. Cool. And result. This is the result of what it's going to do. So next we go into software. Select pattern, Yast-based utilities. I don't have GNOME or KDE or XFCE. I don't have anything as far as that goes selected. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go into KDE Applications and Plasma Desktop because, of course, I am. And hit close. That's good. Installation will take 5.4 gigabytes. Sounds good. I'm going to define my user. I hit accept. I'm going to edit root. Going to use password. Now what I'll do once I get installed, I'll change, if I need to, I'll change the user I just created to be sudo user. So it's one reason you want to set a root password, is so that you have the ability to change your first user, however you need to change it. And I'm pretty sure we are complete. Here's the overview again, and then click install. So very similar to the way the other one was. I think it's a little cleaner, a little neater. There's some more options. I think it's not bad. It's I'm still disappointed you're not gonna be able to select packages, man. That sucks. It is what it is. But once you get installed, you get your system installed, and you can add and remove packages to your heart's content. So it's not the end of the world. It's not a make or break. It's very easy on the eyes, and it's very simple to just click along to the next thing. So I think it's visually it's way better than Yast. Usability, it's nowhere near Yast. So that's where we're at. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this. On the other side of the install, I just want to see if parallel downloads is active. That's all. That's all I want to see. And then once we check that, then we'll go ahead and close this little video out. So I'll see you on the other side of the install. That was Luna, 14-year-old kitty cat. Hit reboot. And we are running. All right, let me get logged in here. So, a couple things I want to check. I'm really considering asking on the mailing list, when is KDE Plasma going to get Wayland by default? So, first things first, change that off all display. Manage display setting. 19 by 20, much better. Keep, thank you. Info. We are in X session, so I'm gonna be asking on the mailing list, do we know or have any idea when we're gonna get Wayland by default in KDE Plasma? Because I've not seen it being discussed. And my understanding was they didn't want to switch to Wayland as the default when we switched from Plasma 5 to 6, because they wanted to know, okay, is the bug Wayland or is the bug Plasma? And that was a great idea, but 6 is really good now, and I think it's time to reassess that situation. Next thing I want to check is I should be completely updated. Sudo app, nope, that's not app. Sudo zipper dup, and boom. Sweet, my username has sudo access by default. Love it. Excellent. Okay, so in that case, we're going to try it with Steam. Sudo zipper in Steam. Let's see if we get a parallel. First of all, I want to check and see if we get, what is it? SE Linux game policy targeted gaming right there. It is. Hit yes. We are not getting parallel downloads, so it is not activated. All right, no reason to watch this install. We are done with this Agama install, and go ahead and minimize that. We're done with the Agama install, the Agama 13 review. Better, certainly better than the Agama 9 that I tested. Very disappointed with the not being able to select packages, but it is what it is. You can finish your install and then do whatever you want to do to your heart's content with the packages that you want installed or uninstalled. So it's not a make or break, but it's definitely coming along pretty nicely, I think. And I think it'll be just fine. I like it. I really do. I like it. Anyway, if you got this far, please do the like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And on the YouTubes, I'm trying to hit 10,000 subs. We're not far from it. Please subscribe if you haven't. But other than that, like always, thank you so much for watching.